Hey guys, and welcome. This is episode 103 of Off the Sprue. In this one, we'll be doing some figure painting. I'll be painting and detailing a commander figure for our hobby boss Jackal. In the previous video, we put the finishing touches on the hobby boss Jackal, and it's time to move on to figures. I'll be modifying, painting and detailing a commander figure from this master box figure set. And guys, as I said before, I don't regard myself as being a figure painter. There are many talented people out there. However, I have found ways of making this work for me, and that's what I'll be showing you in this video.
I'm Lindy Swart. I'm the owner of Supernova Studio. At Supernova, I employ 3 staff. We've got Moddy, who makes the fudge every Wednesday, so it's always fresh. And then we've got Belinda, who's the accountant, and we've got Tyler, who's my right-hand lady that helps me with everything. When we pack orders in the morning, we make sure that somebody's pulling and somebody's checking so that there are no mistakes when you get your order. We try very hard to make sure that when you order, everything is done to perfection. Jackson is just the best. He keeps us laughing all day long. He's a lot of dog, he's fun, he's loving, but he's also chewing. He always chooses the most expensive pigments to chew. He eats the strapping tape, he takes the scissors, he eats the stapler. Jackson is our quality control. If you go onto supernovastudio.durban, you'll find us online.
So, onto the build. I'll be detailing this commander figure from a master box figure set, modern UK infantryman, and quite nicely detailed. The one thing that I always find confusing about this specific set is that the sprues aren't numbered. You have to look at the back of the box. And the parts that we'll be using is in this area. So as always, the first step, just remove these from the sprues as carefully as possible, and then start cleaning them up. Now on that topic, I find these sanding pads from AK very useful. They're available from Supernova Studio, and especially the yellow one. And like good wine, they improve with age. So this really worn one is actually the best sander that I have, and it's great for applications like this, where I have to remove seam lines and just basically tidy up the parts for styrene figures. You can see there that old pad works really well. Now when I put this inside the Jackal, there's some issues. As you can see, the right leg is going to either step on the driver or the gear lever, and of course we can't have that. Now the reason for this is quite simple. This specific figure set is intended for an entirely different model, for the Hobby Boss Land Rover, and it's a build that I've done before, and really these figures fit that set perfectly. Very useful indeed, but it will require some modification. The part that I'll have to modify is the knee and possibly the ankle. So the knee, the position of the knee will have to be moved backwards. For that, I need to first remove the lower leg using a pair of sharp hobby side cutters that you can see, and this now needs to be moved back, so increase the bend of that knee. In order to do this, I need to cut away large portions of the lower leg. You can see there it leaves quite a gap, so that's more or less the position we want. To make it easier to adjust this, I'm going to insert a small piece of wire inside the styrene parts. So first I used my rotary tool just to completely clean up that lower leg. I drilled holes in both the upper leg and the lower leg, inserted the wire, and this then makes it a lot easier to perfectly adjust the position of that lower leg in order to fit inside the Jackal. That's more or less what I have in mind. Let's just refit this inside the Jackal, and that now looks a lot better. He's no longer stepping on the driver or the gear lever. Of course, this leaves quite a gap, and how do I fill that gap? The answer is milliput, and you recall in a previous video I scratch built some stowage items from this very useful epoxy putty. And guys, I really just follow the same procedure, mixing equal amounts of the epoxy putty as well as the hardener, and then proceeding to just insert that into the gap. And I then started just to work that inside into the figure, getting it as close as possible to the shape of the leg, and also inserting the folds in the trouser legs. You can see there, using a toothpick just to get those folds back in place. At this point, I was more or less happy with the shape of the knee insert that I made there, and I left this to dry overnight just to let the putty cure fully. Guys, now when milliput dries, it really becomes rock hard, just as the instruction says, and at this point it becomes very easy to just further refine that putty insert, sand it down and shape it in the way that I require. You can see there again, using my favorite sander from AK. So that's more or less what I want there. Liking the shape as well as the folds. You can actually refine the folds a little bit more using a sanding stick. And then once this is done, this figure is ready to go. Certainly happy with that result. Now next, some gap filling will be required, and for this I'll be using Vallejo plastic putty. Now guys, this is one of my favorite products. One of the great things about it is that it can be thinned with ordinary tap water. So what I usually do is I just really thin this down to almost a liquid form, and then using a disposable brush, I insert this into all the gaps that I see on the figure. And it's not a problem if you perhaps use a little bit too much. This stuff tends to self-level. So this is a great product to just fill all those gaps. I also proceeded to assemble the other two figures, both the gunner and the driver, because I wanted to paint the base layers in the same way, get the same color consistency there. So with all the figures assembled, this is what they look like inside the Jackal, the 3 headless horsemen. And really this is just to make sure that everything fits properly, and that all the figures fit where they should be. So we've successfully modified the Land Rover figures to fit inside the Hobby Boss Jackal. I was quite happy to get this done. When it comes to figure painting, this is essential. This is a wet palette from Redgrass Games, one of my favorites. And guys, this is the perfect companion to that. This is a painting handle, a figure painting handle from Redgrass Games, manufactured in Switzerland. This will really elevate your figure painting, whether you're painting miniatures or military figures, whatever the case may be. This just makes it so much more comfortable to do figure painting for long durations. There's 3 items. You can see a very powerful magnet in the base of that handle, as well as a base for it to stand on. And guys, this is a really comfortable handle. The top rotates, which is great if you have to move your figure. And also included is this very sticky putty. So what you would do is you'll use some of the putty, not all of the stuff like I'm using there, but this goes on the top. And then really you can just put your figure inside that putty, fit there, and there you go, ready for painting. So that's one way of using this product. However, I'm a creature of habit. In the past I used champagne corks and some wire, and I like to pin my figures, insert a little piece of wire in the bottom, and this would later also go into the diorama base. So this was the old way of doing it. Now the great thing about the Redgrass Games handle is that I can actually still do this. I don't need to change my way of working. So instead of using the sticky putty, I'm just going to use the bottom of this champagne cork, and it would actually fit the top end, the rotating top end of that handle perfectly. So there we go. Best of both worlds, and I don't need to change the way that I've been working for the past few years. So with that done, I can now start priming my figures. Now you can see primer applied, Mr. Hobby, and these are now ready for the base coat. Now guys, you'll remember in episode 101 I painted these British camouflage patterns, and the base color is aged white for Desert DPM. This is applied with the airbrush, spraying from the top down, and for the heads I used beige red, and again using the same method, just in order to leave those shadow areas there to help me later on when I start detailing the body and the heads. So this is the base coat applied. However, for these figures I wanted to try something else. I experimented a little. So what I did was to slightly darken the shadow areas of this base coat. So underneath the arms, the knees, all the folds. And in order to do that, I mixed a little bit of tan yellow into my aged white, just to get the color a bit darker. You can see there on your screen doing exactly that, just a slightly darker tone. And to do this precision airbrushing, I used my Evolution CR Plus from Harder and Steenbeck. This one is sponsored by Super Hobby, distributors of Harder and Steenbeck in South Africa. And of course, these fine airbrushes are available from Supernova Studio. And you can see there, it's ideal to just very carefully insert very precise lines into the figure. So there we go. All the shadow areas have been darkened slightly, and this is now my base color, and this is now ready to go on to the painting handle. We'll be doing some brush painting next. Again, using my cork base into the painting handle, and there we go. In terms of brushes for figure painting, I chose two sizes of detail brushes from Vallejo, from the Pro Modeler range, really some of my favorite brushes, and of course also my Red Grass Games wet palette. And guys, this is such a great tool for figure painting. It keeps the paint wet, and of course that makes it so much easier to blend your colors, and also, you know, the paint lasts longer, so this is highly recommended. When painting camouflage patterns, be aware of seams. In the real world, a camouflage pattern will rarely run seamlessly across a seam, and this is something I need to replicate on my figure. With this in mind, I can start painting the tan earth color for Desert DPM. And you can see there, making sure that I don't run across that seam on the trouser leg, the side seam, and effectively breaking up the pattern as the case would be in the real world with a real piece of camouflage cloth. So guys, there you can see the pattern applied, broken by that side seam on the trousers, and certainly giving us the realism that we want. And next up are the webbing, this dark webbing and the belt that we see in this reference picture. That will need to be applied to the figure as well. And for this, I'll be using flat earth, slightly a darker shade of brown. Again, using my Pro Modeler detail brush from Vallejo, and then carefully just painting in those strips of webbing on the vest as well as his belt. Now this requires a steady hand, and of course not something that you would rush. When painting the belt, be aware of the loops in the trouser, the belt loops. And then also, guys, be aware of the different colors, the inside of the shirt, the sleeves, as well as the boots. Now for this I used stone gray, and I mixed colors. I mixed in some tan earth with stone gray, just to get darker shades. And of course, this is the great thing about wet palettes. You can mix and match your colors as you wish to get those different shades, and this is especially useful when painting faces. So there's the basic camouflage done. The boots are painted, the webbing and everything else, and we can do some detailing. I applied this filter from MIG Productions, of course being well suited to desert camouflage colors, and this has been diluted with some odorless thinner, and this will now run into all the recessed detail. The great thing about this is that it can be applied to acrylic paint without the need of a varnish. I've often applied this without varnish, and the excess can be easily removed with some odorless thinner, just to make sure that everything is neat and tidy. there we go. Figure has been cleaned up. And the great thing is that all these seam lines are now nice and visible. And what I can do next is just to use a fine detail brush and some burnt umber and further refine this. So there we go, burnt umber, as well as a fine detail brush from the Vallejo Pro Modeler range. And I can now just go and just darken these seam lines that the wash color brought out nicely. Such a nice way of getting those guidelines in there. A little bit of shadow color is required inside the folds. Easily applied with the detail brush. Just darkening those folds in his trousers. Guys, so there we go. Happy with this one. The next step, the final step, is some dry brushing. For this I'm using camouflage, German camouflage beige and a Vallejo dry brush, small dry brush. And this is now carefully just dry brushed over the raised detail on this figure, the edges of the vest as well as the webbing. So there we go. I'm happy with this. This is the camouflage applied. The body has been painted, and the next step is to move on to skin tones. Now, guys, painting realistic skin, painting faces and heads can be a subject for an entire video. In fact, I've done a few of those. You can look at some of my previous videos. To paint this figure's head, I again used my Red Grass Games handle, my fine detail brushes from Vallejo, and of course my wet palette. Guys, you can look at episode 90 where I did a comprehensive video on painting a face in my own method using 5 colors from Vallejo, and of course these are mixed and matched as required. Now I've simplified the process for myself down to shadow colors and highlight colors. The shadow colors being applied to the eye sockets, beneath the cheekbones, and the highlight colors applied on the tip of the nose, the cheekbones, and then of course just blending those colors, continuously blending the colors in order to get a realistic skin tone. So there's the basic tones applied. Happy with that. Of course the same needs to be done on the arms, painting in those highlight colors, getting those realistic skin tones in there. In terms of the eyes, this is usually where things go wrong. So what I do is I first paint in the whites of the eyes, and then making sure that I'm facing the figure head on, I paint in the pupils. And this way, you won't end up with cross-eyed figures, cross-eyed heads. So make sure that you look at the head face on, straight from the front, and then paint in the pupils. And there you can see, fortunately, no cross-eyed commander figure in this case. Next is some finishing. These webbing strips on the helmet, they're painted in again using burnt umber just to bring out those webbing lines. And really I followed the same procedure on the pouches and the helmet, everything else, just to get that desert DPM pattern in there. Again, making sure to be aware of seams and breaking up the pattern where necessary. Final step, of course, is just to add this to the figure using reference pictures. Camelback goes on the back, and for the camelback hose I used a piece of lead wire painted in the correct color, and this is easy then just to glue in place and shape that around the figure for a realistic looking camelback hydration backpack. The final step is just to seal in all this artwork with micro flat from Microscale. Guys, there we go. This is the completed commander figure for our hobby boss Jackal, with the modified knee as well as the camouflage pattern applied, and he fits perfectly inside the commander's position in the hobby boss Jackal. Quite happy with this, and certainly lending a nice bit of extra detail to our model. Now, of course, this build is not done. There's quite a few figures left, and that's something that I'll be touching on in later videos. So do join me for the rest of the series. Folks, that's it for episode 103. Thank you for joining me. As always, do follow me on Instagram. I post frequent updates on all my builds there, and you're guaranteed not to miss a single detail. Thank you for watching.